This is the RX100 Mark VII. It is a small, tiny camera, and today I'm going to be doing a portrait shoot to test it out. I've been taking some pictures with it. So I've been having a lot of fun shooting with this camera. It's very refreshing. I've been tired of carrying all the bulky gear and just having to take that with me whenever I want to take photos. And I always find myself in this position where I wish I had my camera with me, but at the same time, it's way too heavy. And I've been just obsessed with this idea. So today, we're gonna put it to the test. I think so far it's a lot better than the phone. So there's moments where I'm like, oh, I can just take a picture with my phone. But having the professional tools that are in this camera have been really nice. Being able to change the aperture, being able to change the shutter, and the zoom has been also been crazy. I don't think an iPhone can get to that much zoom. For those of you who do not know about this camera, it goes from a 24mm full frame equivalent all the way to 200. So if I want that same range using proper gear at like 2.8, it would be at least quadruple this size. Like this is the 70 to 200 and this is the 24 to 70. So if I can replace all this range with this tiny camera that can technically go in my pocket, but it looks weird in my pocket, so I'm gonna put it in my fanny pack. So without further ado, we're gonna start this portrait shoot with our friend Laure. Laure, please step into the ring. So she's gonna be helping us out today doing this fashion shoot, and hopefully the pictures are good enough that she doesn't think she wasted her time today, right? How are you feeling about this photo shoot?
I'm very excited. I'm not really a model, so this is my very first shoot ever. Okay. I love taking pictures and I trust you, so yeah, I'm excited.
Perfect. This is actually good because usually there's a lot of times where I do fashion shoots or portrait shoots with people who are not professional models. So I'm going to use this opportunity to also walk you guys through the whole process of me doing photo shoots. So hopefully that can be valuable to anyone. Usually when I'm taking pictures, I like to go to a location that I think is somewhat interesting or has enough shapes or shadows or whatever. I usually just walk around until I see something that's interesting. I think this frame is kind of nice. So I'm going to play around with that frame and see what we can do. I really like this scene. Also, it's kind of a coincidence that her outfit matches perfectly with the buildings behind. The red matches perfectly almost with the teal, and all these three colors are kind of also pastel looking, so I think that's going to make an interesting composition. Also, the sky matches her shirt and outfit in general, and the shapes also can be used, I think, in an interesting way. And a big positive, I guess, or pro for this camera is it could zoom in a lot, and that's good if I want to get something further away, but also it's good if I want to bring the background closer to the subject and kind of compress that entire background. What I like to do before doing a shoot in general, especially if someone has not done this before, is I like them to ask if you could take a moment to take a few breaths, deep breaths in from your nose and exhale from your mouth. Now this kind of seems silly at first, but a lot of people end up feeling a little bit better afterwards. It also tells our brain that nothing is wrong. Usually people are stressed, especially if they're in front of a camera. Having to take this moment to take a few deep breaths and also kind of sink into this moment, kind of like look around, also appreciate the weather, if the weather is nice, you know, all these things. And this really helps people relax. And we have all these little face muscles. When we relax, they relax. And that also allows kind of the true essence of a person to kind of shine a little bit more and not be as resistant. So I think most people are going to be very interesting when they show their true essence. Once I see people do a move by accident, and usually they go back. Usually they step out of it and but I tell them to go back to that, especially if I think it looks cool, it looks interesting. Or sometimes I think they did something and I kind of imagine it. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but you'll start imagining different poses that are inspired by the person who's in front of you. So she's naturally standing like this, and I think this is a perfect way to stand here. And she said she hasn't modeled before. Look at you go. Laura is making it very easy for me to not have to do anything, so she's just kind of going with the flow. Usually what I'm trying to do when I'm doing a photo shoot is get in the flow of taking photos. I think once you're in the flow of taking photos, then photos they just kind of happen. And I know that sounds very woo-woo, but what happens is when someone's comfortable, when they're kind of in the groove, when you're taking photos, don't interrupt that flow. If you have that flow going on, this is one of the reasons why I try not to show pictures to the clients. Protecting the flow is very important because people just start naturally playing, and when you start naturally playing, you have more fun, and then the pictures look more fun, and then everyone's happy, and then they give you more money. But before we move on, I'd like to introduce Leticia. This is Leticia. She came all the way from Sao Paulo to help us out today just for this video. As we were walking by, I noticed this really cool color. I think it's a very plain background, so if I crop in everything else, it could kind of look like a studio shot. I think she's a little bit too close to the wall, so I'm gonna ask her to take one step forward. This way there's a little bit of separation. So if I was using like a professional camera, that background would be like creamy smooth. This is good, but I also want that line to not be there, so I'm gonna ask Laura to move one step to the left. Yeah, that side. Oh, here's a tip also. Don't use directions when you're doing a photo shoot. Point instead, because your left is their right and their right is their left. That makes sense. Oh, this is a great shot. You know what? I'm optimistic about this photo shoot. It might not be a complete waste of time for Laura after all. Take one teeny bit small step forward. Perfect. So I'm also gonna zoom in a little bit more. This way I can get a little bit more depth. And now the background looks very interesting. Very simple, very minimal. I always like minimal shots. And Laura is killing it. It's part of simplifying the frame, really, is making sure there's no distractions and the subject is clear. And yeah. So I'm gonna step in and try to take a wider shot. I think we're at like 35 roughly, 35 millimeters. I think it's a good shot. I like the line in the bottom. It matches with the outfit still. I want to thank Leticia again. Muito obrigado. This is so much easier than doing it alone, so big shout out. Thank you so much. Appreciate it for coming on a Sunday to help me out with this, so thank you. A quick note about the RX500. One of the things that I also appreciate a lot about it is that you can take raw photos. And I know all the new iPhones and stuff have the raw feature, but I've played around with some of these in the edit and they're not that good. But what I've found with these photos is you can really squeeze a lot out of them, especially with the white balance and the tint. And I think the white balance and the tint are easily some of the most underrated settings that you can adjust. You can kind of see here the before and the after adjusting just the white balance and the tint and a little bit of the exposure. Okay, so this is a really cool frame. I really like it. I think there's kind of like a little hue in the glass that reflects kind of a similar color to Laura's shirt. And also it's a very, I think they probably did this one on purpose. It's a complementary color to that red teal. Also, it makes a really nice frame. I'm gonna start with doing some up close shots of the reflection and see what we can do. So Laura, come on in. Come on right down yonder. If you get as close as possible to the glass and also ask Laura to get as close as possible to the glass, which she's doing already, you can start getting really cool reflections and kind of just get lost in thought and the past and the future. And yeah, this is not bad.
Fire picture.
Thank you. I don't know how he knows, but he knows they're good, yeah. Look up a little bit, like chin up. I'm gonna do kind of like an artsy-fartsy picture of close up on her hands. It looks like she's kind of praying. If you don't mind, you can come kind of to the center of that. Try to be as centered as possible. And feel free to lean on the thing if that feels kind of comfortable. So yeah, this is a cool shot. We're onto something. I also really like the reflections that are in the glass of the trees behind. They're kind of doing some leading line action, so that's kind of cool. So the model just ran away, so we're gonna have to do the shoot of abstract stuff now.
I love that you said it wondering, like.
No, I'm kidding. She went to bring her phone. So when you're taking pictures of people, you want to give them the freedom to keep moving around and kind of have motion, because when you're capturing motion, it looks a lot more like dynamic. And also you want to increase your shutter speed, so you make sure they're not blurry.
Just don't move.
Oh my god.
Just be there.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
What was that? What?
A big drawback of this camera is when you have little light, you have to kind of lower your shutter speed. And when you're taking pictures of moving objects or people, that ends up kind of making you have to increase the ISO. This way you don't go over a certain number. Especially if you're at 200 millimeters, any small shake can cause a lot of blur, so you want to increase that shutter speed. And now your light is kind of limited, but you can always use the ISO. Also, there's a lot of good noise removal software now, even built in Lightroom. Oh, honestly, I've been kind of embracing the grain a little bit more too. I would just kind of lower the color noise and then add a little bit of a grain, and then that kind of feeds also into the whole Polaroid look. We didn't take too many photos, but this has been kind of fun. Coming out on the shoot has been also making me realize how much more convenient it is to take this camera. Whenever I have to take this camera I'm shooting on now, I have to take a backpack with me. But this, I can just put it in a fanny pack and just go, or in my pocket. It's not perfect for pocket. You guys let me know what you think of the photos. I think regardless of the quality of the photos, taking pictures with this camera is a lot more fun, and I think it feels less intimidating also when you're taking pictures of people with this camera. So I don't know if Laura is just super comfortable in front of the camera or not, but she seems to be comfortable. But I think in general, having a bigger camera makes people a little more anxious. And when the people are more relaxed, people are more comfortable, the photos will turn out better. I honestly love this camera. If you want to see how this camera performs in New York Fashion Week, stay tuned for the next video.